Hello, and welcome to the third in the series of the Consonance Course, and we're doing production, number 3 on the list. Very exciting. My name's Emma Barnes. I head up the team here at Consonance, and I'm going to be taking you through today the production part of the process of getting a book from soup to nuts. And so we're going to be looking at, as I say, the third part of the process. We've done acquisition. We did that a couple of weeks back. We've looked at editorial. Those are the 2 stages of deciding that we're going to do this book in the first place, and then starting to get the contract sorted, get the work flowing, and getting manuscripts on the way and being delivered in. But production is where things start to get really real. Production is where we start typesetting, signing off design and doing covers, and doing the whole effort of getting a product or set of products into the world. And that can be print, very often print. It can also be audio, it can be EPUBs, it can be all sorts of other sorts of products as well. Consonance is cleaves very closely to the Onyx standard, which you'll know. There are a lot of different sorts of products supported within the Onyx standard, like sheet maps and globes and spinners and that sort of thing. None of those things get printed, but there's still a way to manage the production of those products into existence. We're also talking about digital products as well. These things don't have to exist anywhere other than a computer or other device. So we'll be looking at all sorts of ways to manage the production of products. This is the same formula that we've used for previous sessions in this course. Those purple boxes down the left there are kind of akin to the navigation within Consonance. One of the interesting things about, we're talking about production today, we're not necessarily talking about what the production department does or what the production team does. This is a process that includes everybody all the way through, and so we're going to be talking about the things that happen at the production stage. But everyone's responsible, everyone's involved, everyone has a role to play. It's not always necessarily only about producing print ready files. So we'll be covering a large part of the system today, looking at these different areas. And different team members will be interacting with different parts of the system in different ways. So in terms of bibliographic information, we should have a fairly good bibliographic record for our products at the moment. And we're going to really start to get the value of those. We're going to be using that single source of the truth in order to put the right copy on our products, whether that's on the back cover or on the jacket or in the metadata information in the EPUB files and beyond. We're going to be following on from the last session where editorial we're really using some of the workflow tools within Consonance. Those workflow tools are going to remain relevant for this next part of the process. A lot of it involves handing over from the editorial team to the production team. And we're going to look at grids, which is the one place where everyone can come together and see relevant levels of detail, who is responsible for what and where we are in the process between different departments, between different activities and to-dos. We are going to be looking at the particular area in Consonance where you do put production files and where you do manage the details of a production run or print run. We're also going to be looking at a little bit of part of the system we've not looked at yet, which is legal. Later on in this course, we're going to be looking at royalties in quite a lot of depth, and that's where this will really start to kick in. All of the information stored in contracts is then leveraged to generate royalties. But today we're going to be looking at permissions. It's a really nice part of it. It's a quiet but nice part of the system where if you add in the permissions that you've received for different assets, bit by bit, as they come in, before you know it, you have a really useful body of work that gives the production team assurance that the assets that they're including in the products are approved. And it also gives you a body of evidence for the future that you do have the right to be using the assets that you're adding into these works. We're going to be looking at some order details and the process of scheduling printing, and we're also going to be looking at the contact area to do two things: managing contributors and also managing printers and shippers and binders and other entities that you come across. Most of the time we do use the contacts part of the system to, you know, we're talking about contributors to a work, authors, editors, illustrators, so forth. But there's also a means of storing information about the trading partners that you need to get the process working. So printer information will be in there alongside data aggregators. And then finally, and the most very exciting bit for me today, and I hope you'll agree, is getting some data out of the system in terms of reporting. So I mentioned last time that there's a lot of different ways to get data in and out of Consonance, and you have to pick the appropriate vehicle for the data at hand. So, you know, if you're talking about dates, it makes huge sense to export those dates into a calendar format, so that when you're looking in your Google Calendar, you're seeing, you know, that it's Monday and you've got your team meeting and all of that, but you've also got some to-dos from Consonance embedded in the place where you're looking when you're thinking about what you need to do. Today we're going to be looking at taking a live data feed from your Consonance account and having it inject information straight into a Google Doc or a Google Sheet. And honestly, I have a very keen understanding of how this works because, you know, we write the code, but I still think it's magic. It's so exciting to see data just magically appear somewhere where it didn't start out. So we're going to have a look at that today, and I'm going to hope to get you excited about thinking, gosh, well, if I can get my data out of Consonance, that really does start to pay off. That is a very useful end result from all of this excellent data entry that you're doing. So yes, so those are the things we're going to do. Very briefly then, we're going to be looking at one version of the truth to get the data in, you know, over to the typesetter, perhaps in the format of a handover document, or by people logging into the system and looking at it to get the right ISBN and the right prices and the right barcodes and so forth. We are going to be looking at production runs at the work level and also at the company level. We are going to be looking at the sort of information that we can add into those production runs. We're going to be re-looking at the grid, just like we did last week, but we're going to be carrying on now with a bit more of a production eye on things. We're going to be looking at permissions. We're going to be looking at contributors. This is a contributor here, but we'll also look at contact details for suppliers. And here's our print order in Google Docs, just in template format at the moment, ready to go. So we'll be doing a live demo of that. I'm sure that will go completely smoothly and there won't be any technical hitches. We'll see, won't we? It adds a bit of frisson to a Thursday afternoon. So this is our agenda. This is what we will be looking at. So let's go over to my browser and we're going to look at our emerging bibliographic record for the press that we're working on. As I mentioned last time, this is an imaginary publisher, but it's the real system. So we've got some fake data in here. There isn't a press called Feline Press, and they're not publishing a book called Cats Throughout History, but we're going to pretend that that is the case, and that's what we're going to be looking at. So we'll start by having a look at how the data is shaping up here. But, you know, as I say, we're at the production stage, and so rather than necessarily thinking, is my bibliographic record extremely perfect at the moment, I'm in harvesting mode. I'm looking in here to get the information that I need to go into the title verso page, onto the cover design handover and that sort of thing. So, you know, I'm looking for the ISBN, for instance, and last week we looked at the idea that you can get print ready barcodes from the system right here. I can click on that, and then that downloads to my desktop there, so I know that that is definitely the barcode for the ISBN 13 there. If I'm doing a lot of emailing around, it's very nice to be able to get a copied set of data onto my pasteboard that I can paste into emails and any other places. Perhaps you're obliged to use another project management system, or there's some other instance where you're under threat of having to type an ISBN. Never type an ISBN. That's when errors creep into the system. So if you're hoping to communicate with somebody about this hardback, for instance, click on that hardback, on that pill there. You've got the information there, copy all, and now it's available to paste into anywhere you want to paste something. So that can be quite useful. Again, if we're thinking about production information, then we might have an eye on the sort of information that we're trying to get. If I'm trying to get the main description, then I'm going to look at marketing texts, and here it is, the main description. So again, everybody has a responsibility to do their bit of the process nicely so that their colleagues can benefit from it. I am trusting that my colleagues have put the main description in properly, and I can copy that and paste that in other places. I'm also able, though, to see if there's some more information about whether this has been signed off, approved, or is it more at a draft level. So if I click on edit, I'm going to be able to just get my face out of the way. I'm going to be able to scroll down and see, okay, the approval status is currently undefined, so I'm going to be a little bit nervous about using that. I might use this as an opportunity to spark up a discussion and say to one of my colleagues, is this signed off? Is anyone going to be looking at this? I'm very, very keen to use this information. So use discussions to have discursive interactions with other colleagues for any clarification that you need. It's quite the workflow area is quite malleable and can be used to put together some nice lists of things that need doing on a kind of structured basis, but also things that just come up as part of the process. And don't be afraid to add in new to-dos to a piece of workflow to satisfy any of the issues that you have, in the moment. So if I'm thinking, gosh, well, I'm not sure whether that blurb is signed off. Is this the blurb I'm going to be able to use to put on the back cover of the jacket? Then I could absolutely add a to-do in here saying confirm blurb. And it doesn't have to be formal and it doesn't have to be proper, but you can say, well, it's the commissioning editor who needs to do it. I kind of need it on Monday, so I'm going to, set, which is of course Christmas Day. I need it on Monday, so I'm going to use a fixed date. I'm going to keep it as ad hoc for the moment. So now somebody is going to get that on their to-do list. Or I could get a little bit more pointed, I suppose, and say, actually, it's this. I know it's this exact person. So pop that on their list, and now this is an item that you have flagged in maybe a couple of different ways, the discussion, the blurb as well. If you want to really sort of roll out the guns, then you can raise an issue from the overview page as well. But it's quite nice sometimes to ease into changes to the workflow requirements using the slightly more gentle tools that are available to you. So use the to-dos not in a formal set, gosh, I daren't touch this sense. Use the to-dos in a more human, malleable, responsive way. Tweak them as the situation requires. You'll remember that ad hoc to-dos don't get copied. So if we were to copy all of these to-dos onto another work in the future, the ad hoc ones get missed out. So think of those as post-it notes. You can pop those post-it notes onto people's virtual screens and say, could you do a thing for me? Thanks. Okay, thanks. So we've gone from the metadata page and we're on the to-do page. I'm going to have a quick look to see what we're doing next. I'll show you as well. We're going to have a look at the grid now, because that's another. We've been looking at the work level information, and there's a lot of information going on that work level page. What we also want to be able to do is, perhaps at the team meeting or the weekly meeting, we want to be able to see a wrapped up summary of all of the products that are trundling forth for this particular season. So I'm going to navigate now to workflow and grid over on the left there. And then I can start to see not just all of the to-dos for one work, but the to-dos that we've selected to look at on this summary area. And so if we have a look at Cats Throughout History, which is the one that we were just looking at, the pub date is a bit earlier than the others. We can see that's the 1st of September next year. And we have been making progress as a team. The send cover brief to do has been done on the 21st of December. There's a coincidence. The cover has been approved on that same day. What a flurry of activity has occurred on the 21st of December. Metadata checks have been completed. The Onyx is at a sufficient stage of excellence that we're happy for that to go out. Set allow Onyx exports has been done. And it's been sent to the copy editor, received from the copy editor, approved, sent to the proofreader. So, we're really approaching the point where the production department is going to be getting involved. And here we are. Send to typesetter is the first mention of production controller for this particular work on this particular grid. And I can see that it's due on the 1st of February. So that, again, I can leverage the tools that are available to me to see this date pop up in a number of different places. It's going to pop up on my Google Calendar because this is a named to-do, and so it's going to be assigned to a particular person, and that person can subscribe to that calendar in the appropriate place. It's going to appear on the to-do list on the homepage when the people log in the morning, so they can see what's due there. And it's here for all to see on the grid as well, which would be used more at a review meeting, a team meeting, to be able to see, okay, this is what's coming up next, what's done. As we mentioned with these grids last week as well, we have got some other meaningful dates from the system interspersed into this grid format. So here I can see that the handover, the actual date for the handover, is the 2nd of January. So I'm going to click on that, and I can edit it in place if I want to. But that's a really key date in the calendar, because this is almost like the pact, the bond of trust between editorial and production. We need to agree when that handover is going to be, work really hard to stick to it, update each other if there's going to be any slippage, because if this handover date is missed, then of course the production department have got less time to manage the process of getting the thing shipped, and then the pub date is under threat. So it's nice to be able to see that handover date embedded on a grid overview here, and it's also nice to know that that date is exactly the same date that's going to appear elsewhere in the system. And so if I navigate to a page that I've already got open here, which is the production page for Cats Through History, so again now we're back on this detailed area, here are my dates. The production handover date is the 2nd of Jan. The planned one was the 21st, so we can see a little bit of slippage there. Double clicking on that, I can edit those dates here. I can edit them in the grid as well. It's the same date. All roads lead to the single version of the truth that we come to rely on. So these dates are embedded on this page in particular because they are so crucial to the smooth functioning of the whole shebang. But this is the page as well where we have some other production information. And I'm illustrating here the idea that a production run can be not only for printed products, the hardback, the paperback, but it can also be for digital products. This production run is for an EPUB, and it can be for any other sorts of products. This one is for audio. and you can see that I've been able to associate these production runs only with the products that they are specifically relevant for. So, you know, we don't print the EPUB, so that has been excluded from this particular run. And the way that we do that is just like on the metadata page, which you'll be used to. We have got the ability to say, well, this is for the hardback product. The hardback is included, but not the EPUB and not the audio and that sort of thing. So that's quite lovely, but we're skipping ahead a little bit. So this is the production run page for the work, and it includes multiple production runs. Whilst these are different because of the format of thing that's being printed or produced, there can also be a kind of time distortion as well. So, you know, you might have a wonderful first edition of this, bestseller lists all around, and then we want to reprint a new edition in 18 months' time. You can come back here if the amount of change means that it's a new product on the same work rather than a new edition which requires a new work. You'd come back here and you can create a reprint, and then you don't have to do all of the data entry to get a production run up and running. You can use the same information that worked so well the first time around, including the roles on the on this particular work, including the to-dos. You know, for a reprint, you bolt more to-dos onto the end of the existing workflow, and you can update the metadata with any changes that need to be updated on a product-by-product basis. So this is the starting point for looking at production runs. If we're going through the lens of a work, we can also go over to the main menu here and look at production runs and see the whole list for all of the production runs that have ever been done in the system. So let's dive into looking at one of these particular production runs. I shall click to edit, and it takes me to a page that's got a set of information. This is a print production run, and it's got some relevant information here. At the top, we've got an order name, and we've got a delivery date where it's expected as well. Then we've got multiple different quantities that we can have. These are split out because sometimes you might have a production run that includes both a paperback and a hardback. You know, you print the paper block on one run, you split the binding line, you bind the jacketed version, and you bind the perfect bound version, but it's effectively the same job that goes off to the printer. So it's perfectly possible that you would have a production run here that would have both a hardback and a paperback, for instance. And it's possible as well that you would have multiple quantities. You might have the author copies, and they might be, I don't know, 50 or a case or something. And you'd say, yep, they're going to get those sent. So any information that you do have about the subtleties of who's going to get what and when and why, you can capture here. You can also note any shortages. Sometimes you only do that if there's a problem and a pattern that you're trying to track, but it's really nice sometimes to come back and say, well, you know, it was kind of within the specifications of the agreement, but you know, 20 copies off is really starting to feel a little bit like we want to keep an eye on that. So, you know, use data storage to inform future decisions, to move the whole process from being sort of hunch and memory based, and give yourself some information to go on when you're making future decisions about how you're going to run your projects. There's some other information here. We can have one or more interiors. So, you know, if we were having a very complicated production run, then we might have a plate section as well as the regular paper. We might have fold out complications. We might have end papers, and all of that sort of information can be stored here. So all we know about this one is that it's an Entebbe 80 GSM. We could also add in some ink colour and some print instructions as well. Let's just set that to FSC for manners. There's information about bindings, there's information about covers and finishes, and embellishments, things like belly bands and stickers and bookmarks, ribbons, so there's all sorts of places where you can store the information that otherwise kind of ends up on an email or ends up on a long kind of Word document list where you're saying, oh, it's really, really important that you do actually do it rounded and backed, not square backed, because, we did say. So again, if there's important information that you want to be communicated, put it in your one version of truth and use that as the basis, because this is so much more findable in 6 months' time when the shipment arrives and you think, I'm sure I asked them. This is findable, this is recordable, and if you do what we're going to do in a moment and use this data as the source for print orders that get sent out, then it's all going to marry up. The things that you see in Onyx and on Consonance and on your website are going to be the things that actually occur in the real world. So it all starts to pay off when the simplicity of one version of the truth is allowed to kick in. I'm going to leave production runs for a moment and we are going to return to this shortly when we have a look at how we can do that, how we can use this data again in exports. But I did promise that I was going to show you some information about permissions and about contributors. So we will have a look at permissions now. This is really because somebody along the process has to be responsible for ensuring that somebody has cleared permissions. And I don't really have an opinion about who does that, but it has to be done and somebody has to be required to do it. So here it is very reassuring to come and see that permissions have been sought and approved for a particular thing. So let's add in another permission, shall we? So who wants permission? Well, we do. It's for this work. And you sort of add in information there. I won't type and talk at the same time because it always goes wrong. But yes, store the permissions and then they are safe. You have a sense that whoever is responsible has a sense that they have got the permissions signed off, and then whoever is using them, whoever is saying to the typesetter, include these 280 images, they have got assurance that they are sending the right information to the people as well. There's permissions given and there's permissions received as well. So this feature in the system allows for both of those eventualities. But because we're talking about production today, we're interested in making sure that we have the right to put these maps on the end papers or whatever it is. So use permissions for that. And that's in the legal rights and permissions area at the top level, and it's at rights and permissions at the work level. I also said that we were going to have a look at contributions and other sorts of suppliers. Now the author for this particular work is findable on the metadata page, so we're going to go there, and we're going to see that it's Mary Glover. With these regions on the metadata page, you can either look at them at this nice little tight single line layout, or you can expand this view to see a little bit more information. This is particularly useful when you've got 32 contributors on the same work, and it gets a bit scrolly to have to go up and down this page to see their information. But here we only have one, but it still makes it good to see. And oops, and I've double clicked there. And so we're going to be able to look at this particular person's information to see whether they've got a biographical note that we need to include on the jacket, whether they've got any information that we need to know about, and whether there's any address information or contact information in case we in the production department are responsible for sending out review copies or proofs to the author for looking at. Again, the actual details of the workflow are always different across different publishers, so it may be the production department responsible for liaising with the contributors, it may be somebody else. But the important thing is that we all need to be able to use the single version of the truth to be able to find the information that we need. So for Mary Glover, I can go over to the products list, I can look at her profile, and I can also look at the other co-contributors that she's worked with, which is really nice if one of your jobs is to put, other works by this author, or you may really like also books, that you might print just after the title verso page. But follow your nose and see the interesting information that exists. So I'm going to go to Mary Glover's page, and some options have revealed themselves over on the left hand side here, including the list of works that she has contributed to within Consonance that we know of. So we've got works here, and she's done all of these. We can see that here's our Cats of the World. Here is Cats Through History. They've both got 4 products which we've been looking at. Cats of the World has got another contributor involved, and if I click to expand this information, I can see, well, there's the products, and there's a co-contributor as well. There's an illustrator. So it's never very far to see who has done what and how they are related to other parts of the system. Follow the links, follow things that look like links in Consonance, and they will be links, and they'll take you to interesting places. So those can be quite helpful. Track copies is a very useful tool at this stage as well, to look at if we are responsible for sending out the 5 finished copies or the 1 proof copy in either post or electronically. It is useful to store that information here, and it is useful to have put in a to-do saying such and such a role, such and such an individual person is responsible for sending the proof copy out to the author at such and such a time. And the place that you find the contact information is on the contributor's profile here. So I haven't put any actual data in because it'd be weird to make up contact addresses, but you would go to the email addresses, for instance, and say, well, this is one of these sorts of email address types. You can say this is a postage place for receiving actual physical copies, and you can also make sure that any information that is relevant to people's identity going on a front cover is handled properly. So for instance, if this person is a pseudonym, then that can be set by whoever's responsible for maintaining this information. Here this person might be a pseudonym for somebody else, and we may or may not want to tag this contact as a pseudonym, and we may or may not want to reveal the real name. So options there with more information underneath the help as well, to give us some guidance as to which name should go where. But hopefully that should be clear enough from the metadata page. Notes are helpful here as well. If there's an important piece of information that everybody on the team needs to know about when we're sending information to real humans, then adding a note here is a useful thing to know about. Being able to say tags as well. If we want to make sure that these people are on particular mailing lists when we have a press release about something, then they can be tagged here. So I don't know, you might have a mailing list to give updates on sort of status of how things are going at the present time. You might want to do like a 6-monthly email marketing campaign or email sending campaign to say, everything's going well at this end, paper stocks are fine, we haven't got any distribution problems, there are no outages, hope you're doing well and do get in touch if there's any problems. So you might want to have a tag there saying keep in touch list, or alert about new imprints being bought list or something. Point is, you can make up whatever tag names you want. They don't need to be proper, they don't need to be onyxy. You can use the words that are as close to the real world as possible, and then things will be much more likely to be the actual one version of the truth. So fill this in as appropriate, harvest the information from it as appropriate. And again, on pages like this, you can use the filter to, whittle the page down to the bit that you need, as usual. Later on, when we look at royalties, by the way, we'll come here to see payments and statements and other interesting aspects of how this person's contribution is coming on in terms of making royalties. So we have looked at sort of contributors. There's also the opportunity to store information about printers and binders and shippers and so forth. And if I wanted to add a contact to Consonance, a contact such as the printer, then I could come here and I could add them as an organisation, and a page would appear full of information, and that would be fine. I could also import contacts, and if I click on that, I'm taken to a page that we were on in our very first session. That was the import page for products. Here we can do the same with contacts. But I also do want to show you one perhaps overlooked aspect of Consonance, which is that you don't need to go to one of those proper pages to do a bulk update or a sort of a standalone piece of work to add a contributor. You can do that from a number of different pages. So if I go to the metadata page for a work, then, and I can add a contributor here, then anytime you see a contributor or a contact select box in Consonance, sometimes we don't see the words on the screen, but it says select or type to add a new option, and so you can do that. So let's add in big print UK. This doesn't exist in the system, but an option appears to say create big print, and so I'm going to click on that. I get the option to say person, organisation, and I'm going to say organisation please, and now I can fill in that any information that I want to fill in at the moment, or I can leave all of this for another time, but handy if you know it. Save that, and then I've got big print as the contributor. So it's very much a useful thing to just bear in mind when you're powering through other tasks within the system. They're not a very good contributor. You can't have a printer as a contributor on a I'm going to delete that, that's silly. Even though it's just pretend, it's silly. Yes, so when you're powering through other tasks, you can avoid losing your thread and context switching to go and do data entry somewhere else. Type that contact into the system, add it in line, and move on. So I think I've covered a lot of the bits of looking at Consonance. We have still got some other areas we could look at, and don't hesitate, by the way, to drop us a line on support@consonance.app if you've got any requests for any further sessions like this. We're doing these big, fundamental course sections first of all, but I'd really like to keep these sessions going on, maybe half an hour every Thursday. And it's sort of, requests. So if you want to dive into exactly what does Ingram UK need in order to receive a notification for a print on demand setup, or can you tell us how to set up Lightning Source properly on the system so that they know that they're the, distributor and producer of record, we can absolutely do that. Dive into real nitty-gritty details. So drop us a line if you've got any requests. It's like local radio, something terrible like that. But for now, we've looked at some of the big shapes of things to do with this production stage. Now what I want to do is move over to another application completely outside of Consonance, and do what I said at the beginning, which is try and get some data from Consonance into a different service entirely, into Google Docs. So let's see if I can bring up this page. So this is Google Docs, and it's not a fancy Google Docs account. It's tied to my email address, but it doesn't have any extra add-ons. It doesn't have any extra fancy payment packages. It is the Google Docs that you can access if you go to docs.google.com and if you've got a Google account. In fact, our email at Consonance is tied to a Google account, so, and I think it's probably quite likely that yours is as well. But this will work for any Google account that you've got. So what we're seeing on the screen here is a Word doc, and it's not got any special programming tags on it or anything. It's like I've typed it out with my human hands, as you do. It's just words on the page that don't have any special programming woo going on. But what you notice that I have done is type things such as title and then failed to type it, title and then an underscore. And this is because what I'm doing here is setting up a template into which data is going to be posted. And I'm going to show you this example of this kind of finished example, but then we're also going to set up something like this totally from scratch to prove that you can do this immediately with no extra money and no extra anything. So you'll notice that there is a slightly odd thing up here. You don't often get a menu option called Consonance, but here we are. There's some code that has been copied and pasted into this Google Doc, which we'll have a look at. It's in extensions, and what that does is give us this button here with a single option, and the option is show sidebar, and that's what this sidebar is over here. And these are again like words I've written that say please type in the URL blah, blah, blah. And then we've got a button that says find, and pressing this find button is going to send a call, an API call to the Consonance account, and it's going to check that you are who you say you are. That's the key bit there, and then it's going to return the data and pop it back into this Google Doc. So I think I'm very brave on a Thursday afternoon doing this like live integration demo, but I'm really hoping that when I click the find button, it's going to magically fill the data in. So I've clicked find. Did you see the flicker and the exciting now presence of data? And this is the production run that we were looking at earlier. This is the same information. I'm going to hit Command and Z and take it back to template level. Let's just go back into Consonance and just have a little look to see. I'll go to production actually. I'll just show you a new way of doing it. Production runs. This is our cats through history. If I go to edit here, so in this section it says, in the bindings, please ensure binding uses red and white striped ribbon, not plain red. Vital information that we want to put into Consonance as our system of record, but also communicate to the printer. And we don't want to rely on remembering to copy and paste this into an email and saying to them, please. So again, back on our print order template, all I'm going to do is click find, because this is the ISBN that we're interested in. So watch just down here. These will get replaced. Ready? Find. Boink. I just think that's so thrilling because it opens up such possibilities. I mean, if I can do that, it means that I don't have to, heavens forbid, pay someone to, write a template. I don't have to be beholden to anybody else to have beautiful marketing materials. I don't have to worry about, oh my goodness, did I copy and paste the right information from Consonance into that email that I sent 3 months ago? And it was the 200th email I sent that day. It gives such surety, and it's just so neat and tidy and doable. And so these things are always a little bit they feel a bit implausible because, you know, I'm just kind of doing it, and you just have to take it on trust that it's as straightforward as it sounds. But in the next 5 minutes, 5 or 6 minutes, I'm just going to set this up from scratch, and you can see that it's a question of copying and pasting and not really knowing any code, but it's a little bit code adjacent. So, you know, we'll be very, very brave and we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to go to, in Google Docs, I'm going to go to File, New, and I'm going to create a new document. And I'm going to call it that, imaginatively. And on this page, let's say it's an advanced information sheet. Advanced information spelling sheet. And I'm going to make that not Arial. And I'm going to make that big. And I'm going to do that. And then you know, in these places, you tend to have a cover image. So I'm going to do cover image. That goes there. And then I'm going to use ISBN 13 there. That's going to be a little bit smaller because that's how these things go. And then I'm going to have ISBN there, and that's going to be the little heading for that. So same sort of thing. You know, it's an advanced information sheet rather than a print order this time, but it's going to have a cover image and an ISBN 13. But there's no consonants button. Where do I get my consonants button from? So I'm going to click on extensions to add my consonants button. And I go to App Script, which is lovely, and that's going to load up. And it starts to give the little sense of looking a bit codey. You know, new punctuation has occurred, but don't worry, it's fine, because what we've done for you is give you all of the code that you need. You don't even just squidge up your eyes. Don't even look at the fact that it's code. It's all fine. You're just going to copy and paste the code that we've put here for you. And then once you've got it working, you can bravely have a look at the code and think, well, I could possibly change that if I'm very brave. So I'm going to, first of all, and all of the instructions, all of this stuff that I'm saying, by the way, it's right here. So you can follow the instructions at your leisure. And also definitely get in touch with us if you want any help on this, because it's very, very thrilling and exciting, and we want you to be able to use your data. So we're standing ready to help. Anyway, I'm going to copy this code here. And this button says copy, so that's very handy. I'm going to go back to my new code thing, and I'm going to click add and add an HTML file, and it's going to be called sidebar, and this is where our sidebar is going to come from. I'm going to get rid of the demo template stuff that arrives, and I'm going to paste, like Command V I just did, I'm going to paste in that information that I've just copied from our documentation there. And then I'm going to scroll down in the documentation. There's another big block of code, don't worry. I'm going to click copy on that one. Go back to Google Script. This time I'm clicking on code.gs. I'm getting rid of whatever they've put there to start with. I'm Command Ving to paste that in, and that's going to give the Google Docs the code to create that sidebar, a little bit at the top there. It's going to make a call to your Consonance account. It's going to get all of this information. You see, this is starting to look a bit more sort of English language, isn't it? You know, we're going to get the edition number for the work. That's all right. Then a bit more code. And then these are the instructions of what we're actually going to do. In the body of the document, find any text that kind of matches this pattern of ISBN 13 underscore and replace it with whatever you get back from Consonance. So this is, I mean, it's quite leggy code, but it's quite good because it is in English and you can read it, and you don't necessarily need to remember all of these squiggles because you can copy and you can paste to edit, to edit something new into it. So, but for the time being, we're not going to worry about that. We are going to just paste it in, and I've saved that. I've pressed Command and S to save it. Back on our squiggly thing, if I refresh the page, I should now get a consonants button pop up. There it is. And now I can click on Show Sidebar. And I'm just going to have to go and get my my authentication key. And also Google is going to want to authorize me as well. So first time I create this this document, I do have to click OK. and then it's ready to use thereafter. So I'm going to click OK on that, and then I'm going to say, yeah, this is the one that I want to be linked, and it's going to do a bunch of stuff which I'm happy with, and then that authorization is successful. So then what I'm going to do again actually is click on Consonance, show sidebar. That loads my sidebar there. Slightly off the screen, which you can't see, I'm going to get my authentication key, which I'm copying to the clipboard, and I'm going to paste in here, and then I'm going to put in the ISBN that I want to get the information for, which I happen to know off the top of my head. That's right, 1905005. It's an old one of mine, but it's easy to remember. And then I'm going to click find, and magically it's got the cover from Consonance, and it's put it into a Google Doc, just like that. Although I've introduced a typo on the ISBN one, so that's not going to work. So let's just get rid of that R on the end of there. Let's try that again. Click on find. Programming is happening. Data is being sent, and look at that. An image and the ISBN, and then you have to extrapolate, and you have to think, well, if I can get the image and if I can get the ISBN, then I can get all sorts of things. And you would be absolutely right in thinking that. If you are brand new to coding but you are utterly thrilled by what you see, which is a correct response, then start with this approach that I've mentioned today of copying and pasting. But then if you want to start to think about how to get different sorts of data, editing that script is a great place to start. You can also, and I'm going to need to switch screens again now, you can also query the information from your Consonance account in a way that makes you able to see what you're getting in a bit more of a clear way. The information, I know this looks a bit code, but it's fine, honestly, because what you're going to be doing here is saying, query for me the product where the ISBN is equal to something or other, and I'm going to edit that to be something or other. I click send, and then Consonance goes away and gets that information. This happened with Excel last time. It's not showing the information on the screen. That's a bit annoying. Let me see if I can... Nope, it's absolutely not having it. Well, that's all right. We've proven that calls to Consonance magically make things appear in a Google Doc, so I'm not going to be disheartened by that. So yes, so start by copying and pasting, and then maybe start thinking about looking at the app script that you've copied and pasted in here, and start thinking, well, I could add in other sorts of information. You know, what other information have do I know that I've typed into Consonance? Here we're getting the products.subtitle. If you scroll up the page, you're going to see the query that has been called on this particular occasion, and it says we're querying the product's subtitle for the ISBN that we post in there. So, you know, if you're thinking, well, I can see the publication date, but I'd really like the planned publication date, then you can see that we're getting that in this query, and we can scroll down and we can say, well, let's copy and paste that pub date line, change publication date to planned publication date, change this to planned, and then maybe in our thing here, our template, we can say planned. Was that what I called it? I think it was capitals. No, it was just lowercase planned and then an underscore on the end. So that should get replaced. Oh, except I haven't added a planned publication date in. That's okay. So we'll click find, but it's not going to blow up because we did put one in. It's the 1st of September. There we go. So this is like a slippery slope. You can get very excited about posting your covers into Google Docs and all of the ideas that sparks. And then before you know it, you're extending your queries and getting new and interesting information. And your brain will be thinking, well, okay, she's done a print order, she's done an advanced information sheet. Does this stuff work with Google Sheets as well as Google Docs? Does this stuff work with Google Dashboards? Yes, it all does. And so, with Consonance, we've got the ability to share all sorts of information with you. And the documentation that I've been copying is from this Consonance GraphQL API. There's lots of information here. There's lots of different queries that you can run to get different sorts of information, products filtered by price and format, get the marketing material. There's the production one. You can get contract information, basic people information, and then you can even do things like creating your own dashboards like this, which will just make you, team member of the year, because being able to get this sort of insight and this sort of helpful analysis using the tools that you already have available to you, it's very exciting stuff. So there will be links to this information in the description when I add it later. And you must always raise tickets if you would like to talk to us more about any of this stuff. As I say, with this documentation, we've started to give you some starting templates, but really it's really exciting. It's going to be really exciting to see what you build with it. The API that I've been talking about here is actually the same API that we use ourselves to build the metadata page. So you can be absolutely sure that the code that we've written, it's not just sort of a piece of code to do an export that never gets looked at again. We consume our own API, so it's very much alive and kicking and well maintained and thoughtful. So I will leave it there. Hopefully your mind is full of exciting thoughts of the sort of amazing stuff that you can make in different services using your existing data, using the tools that you've already got available to you. But thank you very much indeed for listening to this. You can only cover so much in an hour, so there's lots of stuff that I'm sure we could talk about in future sessions. Definitely drop us a line, support@consonance.app, to put any requests in for me talking at you for half an hour on a Thursday. Great. We're going to have a short break because we're recording this in December, so we'll come back in the new year for the next session, which will be sales. So we'll be doing advanced information sheets, quite a lot on Onyx, quite a lot on making sure that our metadata is tip-top condition, because this is the point at which we're getting data out into the market to sell some books. So thank you very much indeed again, and see you for the next session.